He opens his eyes, he is startled. The entire room is painted with red scriptures. He wonders who could have written all that while he was asleep. However, strangely, the letters begin to disappear. He then thinks he must have been hallucinating because he just woke up. Weird how realistic it seemed. But then he looks to the side and notices. The room he is in is not his room. Getting up, he wonders what kind of place this is. The instant noodles he ate and the 2 tissues he threw on the floor are no longer there. Obviously, he gets confused and starts to freak out. He seems to receive memories from another life of someone who is identical to him. Moreover, both are orphans, but they followed different paths. Our protagonist studied all his life and got into an amazing university. But the guy whose body he took over dropped out of school and had a horrible job. Looking at his trembling hand, he wonders if he is in some other world. And what was the relation of those words written in blood on the ceiling? In the memories of the original owner of this body, there's nothing about that. He stands there trying to understand the situation, when someone calls him husband and says it's time for breakfast. When he turns around, he sees a woman with large curves. Looking at her thighs, he wonders what this husband thing is about. In his parallel world, did he get married so early? She sits on the bed and tells him to get up, it's getting late. Now the rascal already thinks that the transmigration wasn't so bad. He swallows hard, thinking that if it weren't for this transmigration, he would never have such a beautiful and kind woman. She keeps calling him to have breakfast. He doesn't know whether to call her baby, wife, or darling. He then decides to delve into the memories to find her name, so it would be easier. He starts thinking and strangely finds nothing. His mind seems to split. No name, no experiences, no hobbies, no favorite position, nothing. There is absolutely nothing about her in his memory. He looks back hesitantly, realizing she is standing still, and he already knows this so-called wife is strange. And a fly lands on her eye. Hesitant, he asks who she is. She stands still for a second. She then says that it seems he can see, already opening a monstrous mouth. Sweet and cold, the protagonist says that he is just a little confused, he will think about it properly. But now she has already turned into a giant creature saying that he can see. He cries for a second, but in the next, he is devoured. Suddenly, he wakes up in bed again, sweating cold and wondering what happened. He looks up, certain that everything was a dream, only to see the words in blood once again there. He can't read them, the things disappear, and he thinks there might have been some kind of clue there. Staring at his own hand, he thinks he will have to pretend to be blind. But putting his hand on his head, he knows. In the memories of the owner of this body, he wasn't blind, so it makes no sense. He's a guy who always lived alone and never saw or heard anything out of the ordinary. That means he can't let this woman know that he can see her. For now, he will have to pretend she doesn't exist. A hand comes through the door and calls him, saying he just woke up and it's time for breakfast. Seductively, she approaches while he thinks he will have to ignore and see how the former owner lived. She places the Dragon Balls in play and asks if he is awake. Sweet and cold, he knows he can't move and can't see, or else he will die. But suddenly she turns her neck and approaches him, while he insists to himself that he can't show any reaction. But she keeps getting closer and suddenly her tongue comes out of her mouth. As it touches his face, he shows a reaction, and then she knows he can see. His face begins to be consumed by a curse, and suddenly he explodes. In the next second, he opens his eyes and gets up startled again. But now he is angry at that damn woman. The poor guy wakes up sweating cold and tries to stop to reason and starts to wonder. Is he being resurrected or is this a time loop? Apparently it's like when you save a point in a game. He grabs his phone knowing she wanted to force him to show a reaction. He puts on TikTok videos of dancing e-girls to pretend he's distracted. When once again she appears behind him and says it's time for breakfast. She calls for her husband and asks why he is looking at other women like that in front of her. He starts talking to himself, saying that he loves that girl from the live stream. Meanwhile, his wife asks if he doesn't like her anymore. She approaches and says she knows he doesn't have a vision problem. So why is the phone so close? Is he seeing her by any chance? He goes back to fiddling with his phone, wondering if he can't even seem strange. However, he calms down a bit since she didn't show a reaction. He then goes back to looking for other live streams. But then he gets a scare. She appears live streaming on his phone. He stands up and throws the phone on the bed, scared. As he trembles a bit, she behind him says he can see. She opens her monstrous mouth to eat him, but now he comes to throw a punch, but she dodges, and then there's nothing he can do. A bite to the arm, he agonizes and dies once again. While she feeds on the pieces, he wonders if that is really his remains, and with that, he starts losing consciousness again. Once more, she says it's time for breakfast, and she approaches, startling him. Up to the 6th time he resurrected, he still got scared just by her getting close to his face, and he died multiple times because he couldn't act very well. On the 8th time, he tried to escape from that room, but there was no way, and she realized that she could be seen. So he concluded that he should pretend to like her since there was no escape. As soon as she came to get breakfast, he said she was amazing. His plan was to take advantage of that as much as possible. But in the end, he went hungry, and she ate everything. And so he died 13 times in a row while trying to find some way to calm down. Some people who go insane become very sane. But for him, death kept coming. It reached 14, 15, 16. And with each death, he received new memories of the owner of that body. He started to understand a bit about that world and how different it was from his world. This is a place full of bizarre tales. On the 18th death, he wondered why he was reliving. Who wrote those words in blood, and why did they disappear as soon as he looked at them? Once again, he opens his eyes, wondering who is responsible for all this. He doesn't know who it is, but he knows his wife is one of them. She is a monster, and he began to repeat to himself that she should die because he deserved to live. Once again, she came through the door, calling him husband and saying it was time for breakfast. He got up knowing that every time she comes to do this, but never forces physical contact. Standing in the door, she asked if he wanted to start the day by eating some hot, moist meat. He got extremely close, but he walked right through as expected. She can only do something where she is sure he can see. He went to prepare some food while she, desperate at his side, said she already made breakfast and was ready for him. The poor guy sighed, thinking that the more beautiful, the better the lie. She's saying it's ready, but clearly there's nothing prepared. He made a snack, knowing that only by leaving that room would he find something about his wife. When he went to bite the snack, she had transformed into the floor, asking if he was seeing anything. He went to the door to open it, knowing he needed to get out of there, and she was visible on the doorknob, asking where he was going and why he wouldn't stay home with her. But he just opened the door and left the room, saying to himself that no one kills him 18 times and gets away with it. Now he wants revenge. As soon as he finds a way to eliminate her, he will come back here. But as soon as he opens the apartment door, he gets a scare looking at the sky. The world is red and filled with deformed creatures. In front of him, only the silhouettes of people. He gets scared by that and starts laughing like a psychopath, saying that this world is really interesting. But he feels something strange and vomits on the sidewalk. Suddenly, someone appears, asking if the uncle is okay. He looks startled, and it's just a little girl wanting to know if he's sick. He tells her he's fine and she can call him Big Brother. Patting her head, he thinks she's so cute that he would love to have a daughter. But she becomes deformed instantly, saying he can see. His heart stops, and he looks up. The girl turned into a giant demon with a blade. Our protagonist is at a loss for words and then starts laughing loudly, saying that this world is very, very interesting. He likes it and tells her that he really likes this appearance, because that way, when he kills her, he won't feel any guilt. He will end all the weirdos in this place without any remorse. But this time, he was torn to pieces. Once again, he wakes up in bed with the balloon wife asking if her husband is okay. The sun is already rising. The poor guy thinks that having breakfast 20 times in one day is really tiring. Sometime later, he is sitting on a park bench. Once again, the little girl comes and asks where her mother is, can he take her home? While he's thinking about the madness and all the kinds of strangeness in this place. One type is the completely strange and irrational ones. They are aggressive but can't affect anything, like air. The other type is the creatures that are identical to humans. They do nothing but try to get close to you. But as soon as they get a reaction, they make their move. Exactly like that wife. He knows that no normal person in that world can perceive their existence, but even so, they cling to them. Why do they want that? He thinks that maybe these creatures want to integrate into human life. Sometime later, he is holding his phone and received a payment of 3 cents. To survive in this world, at least he will need a bit of money to discover the things he needs. In the work group, a guy named Wu Dai is calling for him. The name of our protagonist is Yizui Fangxiu. He works selling apartments for a company and knows he hasn't received the commission for one he sold recently. So he sends a message saying he is going to settle that, and he speeds up on his bike. When he gets there, strangely, there's a hospital instead of the company's building. The place looks more like an abandoned building. He stands sweating cold at the door, wondering if this is the sales place. He reaches the door and his phone rings. He says he is coming up and asks if everyone is in the office. The people say yes, that the owner's son tried calling him several times, but he didn't answer. The protagonist says that's fine, then he will come up. Our boy realizes that this place is definitely affected by reality, but the people on the call didn't seem to be doing badly. He finds it strange, but also interesting. Walking down the corridor, he suddenly bumps into something. He feels he touched something soft and wonders what it was. He calmly reaches with his hand, wanting to know if that is the limit he can go. But what he touches are 2 magical spheres of clairvoyance that predict a pleasant future. The rascal blushes, and suddenly, he feels something. A slap lands on his face. The girl appears screaming that she will complain about him, and she runs toward the guard while he doesn't understand what is happening. When he looks up, it says Baylor Academy. But as soon as he blinks, the place turns back into the abandoned hospital. He reaches toward a hospital wall, but strangely his hand goes through. He realizes he can't interact with the physical form of it, and thinks that maybe it's like the creatures that need certain conditions. Once again, he passes his hand through the wall, and with that, he goes through it. He feels a bit dizzy and sees an abandoned corridor. Sometime later, he has already looked in several rooms, but they are all empty. But in one of the doors, there is a strong smell of blood. Hesitant, he once again goes to pass through it. He ends up in a room where there seems to be a girl on the floor crying. He keeps looking and she starts to get up, and she looks at him, calling him Big Brother. But now he is resilient and ignores her, passing through the wall. As soon as he comes out on the other side, he faces another creature, but he keeps walking. Even the monster looks confused, and he realizes that there are dozens of strange things there. Every place he enters has a bunch of weird stuff. And the bizarre thing is that some rooms are open in a way that they could escape. Now he's getting good, and doesn't show any reaction. All thanks to the dear wife who killed him 18 times. Suddenly, he sees some papers on the floor that talk about experiment number 128 that underwent a transformation. He crouches to pick them up, wondering